There were 27 school shootings in the U.S. in just the first 6 months of this year. Just incredible. Now, my generation came before Columbine, so that's not something I grew up with. Now, we just cannot understand what it's like to live with this threat. We are not the ones scoping out escape routes in case a classmate opens fire. That may be the reason our efforts to stop school shootings have fallen short. So Denver 7 invited a group of students to our studio to talk about this. What they have to say will shock you, and they really want you to listen.
Thank you all for coming. So, a refresher, my name is Shannon Ogden. I'm an anchor here at Denver 7. This is Dr. Cheryl Ziegler, a psychologist here in Denver. And so aside from the free pizza, sorry, Amy, aside from the free pizza, we're here to talk about issues either directly about school violence or any tertiary issue that comes up about this. And seriously, wherever you guys want this conversation to go, you're in charge here. We'll just kind of facilitate the direction of it. Gun violence, bullying, cyberbullying, anything like that. Mental health, anything you want to talk about, feel free. Nothing's off limits. And since it's not live, we do have a bleep button, I assume. So, now this is not political in nature, but if you want it to go that way, that's totally fine. But I do want to start with this because I think it's a good place to launch. So a couple weeks ago, school was just getting started, and when this is a statement from President Trump, and when asked if he had any advice for returning school students afraid of gun violence, the president said, this is a quote, "They have nothing to fear, they have nothing to worry about." So I want to throw that to the floor. Any reactions to that? Nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. I know somebody's got somebody to say.
He's wrong. Like I feel like that's the general feeling when that was said. Like there's no reason there's no way that we have absolutely nothing to fear and absolutely nothing to be concerned about when the gun laws are so loose, and when everything is just so loose around like safety in schools, and like when we throw up the words like safety inside of schools, it's just like, where do we land at? You feel me? So it's like, I shouldn't say you feel me, right? But I feel like that's just completely wrong. We have a lot to fear and we have a lot to worry about just because there's so many things wrong with just like gun laws, and there's so many things that need to be fixed with policing or the lack of like mental health people inside of a building. And there's just a lack of student support, and there's just a lack of like love inside of these school systems. And to say that we have nothing to fear, nothing to worry about is, in my opinion, ignorant, and just goes to show that he has no idea what's happening inside these school systems. He had no idea what's going on.
Well, let me narrow this down a little bit. What do you fear? Just go around the room, whoever wants to start. What do you fear at school?
Definitely like gun violence. Like, it's easy to say from an outside perspective that there's nothing to worry about, but like my brother, he went to STEM, and I wasn't at the school and I wasn't being affected, but that definitely for me was really eye-opening to see like it's right next to me. Like I am affected by it, and for him to say something like that is kind of ignorant and kind of like feels like I'm being like ignored, and like students are being ignored, and like their concerns are being ignored.
Who else? What else do you fear at school?
He was also in school like such a long time ago. He doesn't know what goes on in 2019. Like, of course, gun violence is a huge problem, like not only in Colorado, but worldwide. And here in Colorado, we have different issues along with gun violence. So we have bullying, and we have the lack of mental health resources, and we have officers walking around in our school, then it doesn't make certain students feel safe.
Anybody else? What do you fear at school?
I fear like being shot and killed in like my classrooms, and like just as a student, especially like being like knowing quite a few people that were really affected by the STEM shooting. Like some like at times in my classrooms, I like have to make escape routes or like ideas of like, so if anything were to happen, if someone were to like come into my school and if there's that possibility of me getting shot and killed, there's that plan I have where I have to map out, so this is where I should go in case of this, or like if like a shooter, I would hide under here, go out this door, and I know a lot of my other friends, especially in my school and just my local community, especially after STEM, we're all just like hurting, and it really feels like a mission coming to school, because honestly, it's just like, are we going to die today or not?
Oh my God.
And
Is that a common feeling?
Yeah, as silly as it sounds, I check cabinet doors inside my classroom to see if they're locked or unlocked and how much space is in the cabinets, just in case something happens. Me and a couple friends can hide in that cabinet, can hide underneath the sink, can hide in the storage closet. Like, at school, you have to know where you're gonna go if something happens. You can't walk in and not know the layout of the school. And it's not even just in school, it's in Walmart, in the mall. I have to know where the exits are. When I'm in a store, I have to know where their exits are. You know, how am I gonna get out if something happens?
Yeah, I subconsciously think about what the safest part of the school would be, or if like a lockdown happened and there was an active shooter, what would be my safest classroom and teacher to be in. And I didn't even notice it until like you guys mentioned it, but I've always thought like performing arts, like that's safest because no one really goes there, there's like less students there. And that's like, I didn't even realize that I thought about that, but I just subconsciously do every like day when I go to school and we have lockdown drills. I'm like, oh, this would be like a safer place to be, even though nothing's really safe.
Well, let me ask this to Dr. Ziegler. I mean, you deal with students this age. Is this common now? Is
Yeah.
this just where we live?
Yeah, movie theaters, malls. Now I think like the Walmart, it's almost everywhere. And I feel like even concerts, like there's no safe place anymore. There's no church. If you go to church anywhere, I can't think of anywhere where a kid would say, I feel safe, except for maybe in their bed, in their bedroom. I mean, do you feel safe at home? I guess that would be my question. Do you feel safe at home and anywhere else?
I mean, yeah, generally I say I feel a kind of a sense of safeness at home, mostly just because it's your home, it's where your family is, and you don't really think, I mean, personally, I don't really think about that stuff, but definitely out in public, like in movie theaters, subconsciously, as I'm watching the movie, I'm constantly thinking like, because you can hear, like when there's bad weather and you hear noises all around, I'm constantly thinking like, oh, could that be some sort of gun, like I'm up in this row, how long would it take me to get out of an exit? And it's like I'm not able to just focus and enjoy the movie because I'm thinking about my safety, just like sitting there. And as well as school, like I'm constantly looking at exits and places that I could hide, just because there's always that feeling of kind of just feeling unsafe.
And she's in middle school.
Jeez. Yeah, eighth
Right?
grade, right? So let me ask you this, and not in a drill, not in a preparedness drill, how many of you, just raise your hands, have actually been in some sort of lockdown at school?
Like a real lockdown?
All but one? Are you kidding me?
Wow.
So either for a real threat or a perceived threat, they said, this is it, we got to hide, we got to lock down.
My bad.
No, go ahead.
It's just so crazy because like at MLK, it's at the point where it's like you don't know if it's a drill or if it's real. Like you have to take everything 100% seriously. Like a couple years ago, like when I started 6th grade, like 8th grade or whatever, it was always taken as a joke. Like, oh, why would I need to do this? Da 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 da. But now it feels like, why are we sitting here learning this when the shooter could be inside the classroom with me learning the same thing? So it's just. It's crazy. Like,
Wow.
The simple fact that, like, I don't know if this was a problem when you guys went to school.
Nope.
But, right?
Not even in the realm
I'm
of
not even a
possibilities.
Right.
little.
So the fact that it's most prominent now means that something needs to happen with either mental health, school security, school counselors. Something needs to happen to where we increase either the love or the safety inside of these school buildings, because something is missing. There's clearly something that has entered inside of these schools that is not heading out without some type of reform, or is not heading out with some type of attention to that fact.
So it also sounds like, I mean, I don't know how this cannot be the case, but you can't be completely focused on why you're at school to do is to learn if you're spending so much time and energy to this. Is that accurate? Does it take away from some of the focus of learning? That you're worried about? Well, you said you were sketching out escape routes.
Like 100%. You're not going to be totally focused on your schoolwork if you're trying to sit there and figure out escape routes. Like, and seeing, like, just being nice to everyone and just, like, making sure you're not going to be the next victim.
My question, I have a question too.
Yeah.
I wonder, when you guys are sitting there, are you also looking at other students like, are you the next shooter? Are you the next shooter?
Language. I look at everyone's body language.
Really? I want to hear more about what are you assessing in other people?
For me, that's like one of the fears for school that I have, being like, as far as going to school as like a black female, I feel like a fear that I have is walking around thinking what, like, based on stereotypes in the world right now, who do people think are the dangerous people? That's like a fear of mine because, just like a student of color, that goes in my mind a lot.
What else? Yeah.
Like for the people, like if we was doing like a lockdown drill, like tomorrow or anything like that, you're definitely looking for anybody who's next to their backpack, next to like something as small as looking at people who's next to their backpack. Like, why should I care if you're next to your backpack or not? But it's only because of the fact that you might be trying to pull out a gun, trying to say, "Hey yo," like I don't know, like it's like I laugh about it, but it's true. Like during these drills, during real life scenarios, that's when you talk about body language, that's the first thing that I look for. I'm like, are you coming to where I'm coming to, or are you sitting there looking sketch next to your backpack? Like, what do you like? What
Do you each have like someone mentally in your mind that you're like, they probably could be the next person? Like, do you feel like you have that sense? You're nodding your head, yeah.
I think I noticed like a lot of they look more on like their body language. I see more who separates themselves, who hangs out by themselves, who people don't like, who people won't talk to. I kind of look towards those type of things rather than what their body language is.
And I mean I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I listen to what people say. I mean, like, there's plenty of instances in my school. People have joked around like, oh, I hate this school. I just want to shoot it up or something like that. Something like minor like that. But I definitely pay attention to that because those tend to be the students that feel like isolated or students that feel like they're not being supported. And something that goes with that is like the lack of community. Especially for my school, we're a smaller school, but it's very like segregated. There are plenty of students that you don't see all the time talking to like a big group of friends. They tend to like stay by themselves, and just like what people say, even if they're joking with it, like that's a red flag for me.
Well, something you said though just blew me away. That you're trying to be nice to everybody, just to increase your odds if he's the guy.
Yeah. Well, as like a brown female too, like I'm at higher risk, especially because like outside of school as well, because the El Paso shooter went to a brown community.
Right.
That's hard. And I know racism isn't gone. Like it's very present within our lives today. So I don't want to be the mean brown girl, you know? And it scares me, but it's how I have to live to survive.
Is there that racial, because that's come up for you a couple times, is there that racial piece for other people too? Do you feel like if you're a minority or you're a brown skin that you feel even at greater risk for violence against you?
100%. One of my friends, I read a tweet like a few months ago that she was just scared about how many of her like friends and like colleagues were like just secretly thinking like they should go back to their country or like stuff like similar to that, because a lot of people don't speak their mind. You never know what's going on in someone's head, and they could just absolutely hate you just by looking at you, and you would never know. So it's really like scary to think about that, and to go along with like being nice to everyone and the isolation. Whenever I see someone like sitting alone, like I think I'm like fairly extroverted, so you like want to like be kind to them, because again, like you never know who's gonna do it. And the especially scary part is that schools will like try to have preventive measures. Like my school this year instilled like a lanyard policy, so we have to wear our student ID around our neck at all times. One thing is not effective because like I had a friend who just took a piece of paper and hole punched it, and they couldn't, like, no one checks, or they switch IDs. Like a white female could be wearing a black male's IDs, like no one would notice. So one thing is not effective in that case, but also like the problem stems within, from like mental health and those kids who are being isolated and who seem to have no friends and are just scared. It's just terrifying to think that the problem starts within the school education system to begin with.
Pardon me. So, because we've had a couple of very high-profile, horrible events here, it all started with Columbine. Being a student in the Denver metro, is that legacy? Does it permeate school that it started here? Because I mean, people are still so obsessed nationwide, worldwide with Columbine. Does that play into your daily fear or the atmosphere being at school here so nearby? Ethan, did you have?
Sorry, I was just like nodding my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, like especially with like, cause I remember back in April with like that incident with that Florida woman.
With Sol Pais, yeah.
She came
Yeah.
from Florida to Colorado.
Yeah.
Because she was
obsessed with Columbine.
Yeah, and like, and I just remember like it was that my school district was like about to go on lockout and everything, and I remember like me, my sister, and like a group of other people were like really terrified about what was going on because like we didn't know someone was gonna like come and make threats and everything, and then just having to sorry, I'm just like losing my
No,
thought.
I got it. No, yeah.
I
Yeah, go
agree.
ahead.
Yeah, with my school, when that incident happened, we didn't find out until it was like the end of one day, and the next day of school, like our school was shut down. We didn't have school that day. And I remember I was with friends that day, and you know, we kept having conversations about it, and just kind of that fear. And a bunch of people, even though the school was open, like didn't go to school the next day, because there's always that fear of, oh, what if it was a big group of people? What if she was working with somebody? Like that kind of fear factor really impacted like all of my friends, even at like my age.
Because then your imagination runs wild. Who's
Yeah,
behind this
exactly.
corner? Is it 12 or is it 1? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I've heard the word mental health used a lot. So what do you think of when you think of mental health? What do you think is needed in the system? What's lacking?
Well, I think there's still so much stigma around it. And honestly, I think right now a lot of the measures that we have in place only add to the stigma rather than try to reduce it. And like instead of, because whenever we talk about people who have mental health problems, it's always still us and them. You know, it's not, even when we try to address it, it's always like they're foreign, like they're alien, like they're not like us, they're not normal. And instead of helping, that only adds to the stigma, and it only like hurts the people who are having those issues and are like gonna be even more hidden about it now that like they see what the public response is to people who have been so open with it. So I think by making it more of like a we issue rather than an us versus them, it would definitely help with mental health, like school shootings. Yeah.
Beautifully said, yeah. Well, listen, I'll take the stigma out of this room. I'm in therapy. There we go. I put it out there. So there we go. It's a we now. So there we go. And she is a therapist. Yeah.
And I'm in therapy.
There we go.
Right?
So there's no stigma whatsoever about it.
So someone once said to me, a kid once said to me, like a teenager, I think we need a new term. I think mental health is just, it's just too outdated and it's got such a stigma. We need to come up with a new term. Do you guys agree with that? And if so, do you or don't you? And then if so, what would it be? What would be better? What would be more approachable?
It's a heck of a question. That's good.
Right? Because they're telling me it's an outdated term. It's just like, we're not going to get anywhere with this term. We got to come up with something else.
I don't think that it's the term that's the problem. I think it's the way that we tackle it. Because like if we change the term, it's like, all well and good, cool. What next? Like no one's gonna really change the way that they view. I don't want to say those people, but like I don't like because I'm getting with the us and them, but like no one's gonna change their outlook. They're not gonna change how they treat others. They're not gonna change none of that. So we need to change the mindset of how we treat others instead of trying to make it, instead of worrying about a term, we need to worry about what to do about that, if that makes sense. Like we need to worry about how to collaborate instead of confrontate with them.
Okay.
You feel me? So,
Yeah, I think something in mental health that could be done with our state and everyone is like allowing students to take mental health days off.
Yes.
And I know, like myself and just like everyone else I know, and maybe including some of you guys, but like we just get those times where we're just like, we can't, like we just, there's so much going on, like if it's like personal, family, anything like that, or just like homework, like finals, exam, drama, whatever. But like I just feel like we need, especially with our state, is that we, and since like the suicide rate is like increasing in our state too, we just need like this sort of relief, I mean, for students, just to like get things done, try to like refocus and just try to like find some like peace just for like a day.
Absolutely.
Just because it's like school's just so stressful now with like everything else going on, like that we're fearing like we're being that we could get like shot and killed in our school, like, and just different things like that, like drama. But
You know, a lot of jobs offer, mental health days. We're not dealing with half the stuff you guys are dealing with. Holy cow. Let me ask you this, and a couple of people had brought up not going to school. Who here has ever skipped school out of fear of whatever? Anybody?
Bullying or anything like that.
Anything?
I think after the threat of Florida, I know of the Florida girl coming to Colorado, I know I stayed home for the rest of the week, I think it was, and I came back that Monday, and a lot of people from my school stayed home, and it wasn't even near South, like it was by what was it, like Columbine, it was like by that school, but even like we felt the repercussions of her coming, so I didn't want to go to school.
That really did spark like conversation at my school, because I know like a lot of my teachers try to like talk to us about that and like what all happened, and I know like a lot of my friends and like including myself just were like kind of, I don't know, just like feared about like if something else could happen or something like that. But it really did spark like for quite some time that like we are the state that like that started like Columbine and
sadly it all
like
started
that.
here.
And just being like a student in this state, it comes with a lot of different stuff that we have to go through.
A lot of baggage you guys are just by simply going to school here. Anybody else ever skip school because of fear out of whatever? Anything? Ethan, you did? Yeah, you?
Yeah, just after the event with the girl coming from Florida. The next day, I believe I stayed home.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it was interesting though, because like I was at a state conference during the time, so like our conference got canceled for the day. School buses were on the side of the road, like it threw everything off. And I wasn't even at school. I was in a hotel. Like we had extra security bumped up. We couldn't leave the hotel. Like it was a whole different. I wasn't even at school. But that's what makes it so different. And there wasn't many details. Like I remember when it first came out, I was like, it wasn't really much on the news. There wasn't much detail on like online. So it was like, I don't know how to react to this because I don't know what's happening.
Sure.
All I know is there's this lady here that's inspired by Columbine.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Go along.
And yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So ours, like, during the Sol Pius incident, again, it was like during the end of the day, fourth period. We just stay after too because we were still on secure perimeter or lockdown, something like that. But our teacher, like, at first it was secure perimeter, so she was just supposed to continue teaching. And one thing, like you mentioned earlier, if that takes away from your education, like during a secure perimeter, like how could you focus?
How are you not looking out the window the whole time?
Yeah, like there's no possible way. And she also, like, she didn't have any information about it because she was supposed to be teaching us, obviously, which she was. During the announcements, like, they tried to feed information to us, but they can only, like, give us so much. And so we got most of our information from, like, a girl's Twitter feed at the time. And she was like, oh, this is what's happening, like, this is what's going on. And it's just crazy to think that we had it, like, from social media before, like, our school told us, even though they already knew we had to be on secure perimeter because there was a threat. So that was, like, I was so confused the whole time.
For a lot of our lockdowns, you have to go on like a news channel to figure out anything in class before you know. And like you go on lockdown, but it's a news Twitter that tells us like South is on lockdown because this, and this.
Yeah, and just during that like instant too, just like kind of getting back to it, I like that. I remember when it was starting, the like signs were like going on and off repeatedly, and then there were like teachers just running to each of the doors, since my school has like way too many, and there were just teachers like running, screaming everywhere to the doors, trying to lock them. They were also confused, and like I remember just like everyone just so confused and scared of what was going on, and I remember like calling my dad, like shaking, just like, where are you? Like we need to go home now. And like the exact words I remember this teacher told me that was like locking the doors, trying to like tell us like stay like indoors, stay like just stay safe and everything. That I remember this teacher told me to get to my house as soon as I can, just as soon as possible, because like no one knew what was going on at the time, and like everything was just panicked, and then just like coming home, that I just remember I just remember seeing this girl from a nearby middle school just like running into like a nearby neighborhood with like her hands up, and I'm sure she like obviously knew what was going on, and like she needed to get home too, but like the streets were empty and everything, and like everyone was just all panicked.
So, and Cheryl, there has to be a cumulative effect of maintaining this level of stress.
Yeah, and you know what I'm thinking about are the teachers. We're talking about you all as students. I wonder what it feels like to be a teacher. Do you feel like teachers ever express to you their fears and concerns?
I feel like it's hard for teachers to do that, especially because during this time we all look to our teachers. They have to stay strong and act normal so we don't freak out more than we are. And I think that's a hard part for being like the teacher, because they're just as scared as we are.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about armed security, armed teachers, armed staff? Would that go at all to make you feel?
No.
Why?
We need to solve the issue from the root first.
Yeah, from the stem before anything happens. And then also the teachers are here to educate us. They're here to like just to educate us and be here for us. And like it is not their job or their duty or their sole purpose as a teacher to like have that big responsibility of like trying to kill someone else, or and like especially in like those kind of situations. I wouldn't think no one would be like, you know, that able to in that sort of stressful time to do like really anything besides like hide and like stay safe.
Sure. So I think everybody said no armed teachers, armed staff. So what? Let's say, and I don't know who it would be, the president on down, president, superintendents, senators, cops, whoever makes the decisions in our country, they're sitting right here in front of you. What would you say, hey, do? Because I hate going to school and feeling this way.
I would say make the background checks much more intensive. Don't just let the background checks drop if they don't go through in 3 weeks. Don't sell guns at places like Walmart, and don't, like, I know people always want to send out prayers and always want to like make it positive, but don't use prayers or video games or external things like that to drive away from the issue at hand. The issue is 1, mental health, and 2, access to guns. And if you can get rid of access to guns, then people won't be equipped to act on that kind of stuff. And then if you can like fix mental health, then they won't ever want to pick up a gun. So I think by like getting the issue at hand and not blaming out external factors, not sending out just prayers to people, because frankly those don't prevent the next school shooting.
Well said. Who else? What do you do? What's the solution here?
My mom and like I completely agree with what you said, but my parents have always told me that it's not the gun that does the school shootings, it's the people behind it. And so ever since Columbine, it's become like
almost like an option, I guess, that school shootings are a thing, and it's completely normal now. Like, that's why we're having this discussion. And I guess one thing to defeat the stigma, like just saying like this is not okay, which is like what we're doing now. But one thing is to like, I guess, eliminate or prevent access from guns. But it's also just figuring out how do you get your message to the people behind the gun, saying like there's another way to solve it, like we can help you, which again connects back to the mental health, but it's all like intertwined.
Like, is it a
Yes,
class?
she has a question.
So you
Okay,
just think
yeah.
if the background checks had more like a mental health, like they had to get a mental health check before they got a gun, you think that would impact it at all? Because I read some letters about this, and someone did propose the idea of more mental health background checks with buying a gun.
I mean, the Aurora shooting, like at the midnight, in the Batman movie, like that. I think I was in like elementary or middle school. Like that was just a mental health case, and they had to go to court for that. So I think it would definitely help. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. So.
Anybody else about solutions?
I feel like it's more like they're talking more about the guns and like what the politicians have to do, but I think this really starts with us. The idea that we make sure no one's isolated. We're gonna make sure everyone's welcomed at our school, because I feel like at my school, most people have a friend group. I don't see many isolated people within my school. Even what you would consider the odd people, they have friends. And that's why I feel a little more safe in my school, because I know everyone's welcomed, and no matter where you come from, what your supposedly clique's supposed to be, everyone fits in, everyone talks to everyone. So I think that really changes preventing what could possibly happen in the future.
See, at my school, it's a similar sort of dynamic. Even the kids who are considered like weird or odd, or I don't know, by some people, have kind of a group, but it is very like clique-y at my group, where everyone knows like who you hang out with, and this is the lunch table you sit at, and this is the people you hang out with, and this is what you're supposed to do. It's very kind of separated, and it's like a big thing. Like, it's so stupid, but at my school, like, there's always big drama if somebody like gets in a fight and like leaves their group. It's like made such a big thing, and I think that doesn't help with people feeling isolated, because it's kind of a stigma. Well, you're not supposed to go sit with these different people because that's not who you're supposed to hang out with. So then they're just left feeling isolated and like very lonely, and I don't think that has any sort of positive like impact.
You started to say something.
I just feel like it's not just that simple to be like to welcome everybody in, because like there's still those problems that people that are brown face, and I'm trying to like not make this a brown issue,
don't
but
worry
like
about
it
it.
is.
Say whatever you want.
But it is because like those people with guns are also people within our own communities, within our own schools. Like you're gonna see people in schools that are kind of like minority areas where you'll see kids are in gangs, and they're gonna bring their guns to school because they're kind of, that's their community, you know, that's how they keep themselves safe walking back home from school. And like I think it also starts with like providing things to like the brown kids, because like they are in those gangs because they need that support from a community. They need a community just generally, or they need a home. And like I just don't think it's only about like making everybody feel welcome, because it kind of just sounds like I don't mean to like say it, but like it kind of sounds cliche, like everything needs to be like smiles and like rainbows for everything to be okay, when it's like so much deeper than that. Because like there's people who aren't given the resources that are like mental health and like all that kind of stuff, like places to stay, or even like a school to go to, even like it's just like it's so much deeper than like just making people feel welcome. I think like it's definitely also race, and like it's definitely classism and all that kind of stuff.
For me, I think that something that we need to work on is, you know, of course security, like as far as like maybe officers, or I know some schools have like metal detectors. I'm sure that's important because that's like an extra measure, but I think instead of focusing on how are we going to save the school from the next shooter or anybody who want to harm the school, like protect the next shooter. Like we don't know who it is, but I think like schools need to start
implementing like more counselors, or if you see a student that may feel sad or something, just like paying attention to a student's like actual like presence, their state of mind. Is this person always feeling sad? Or like just making sure your school is giving people like the access that they need to like mental health type of like helpers, like I said before, counselors. And that's like a way to tackle the root cause, because I mean, we can always try to prevent try to protect the school from the next shooter, but like if we have access to a way for people to not even think about doing that, that's ideal.
Well, before we get that, and but it's what about armed, not staff or teachers, but armed student resource officers? Who do you all have them at your school? Yeah. So are they a layer of comfort to you, or are, like you said, are they just sort of an after the fact, this is what we're dealing with?
You had a big no.
That's also like on race, because like you're just making a brown person feel like so much more unsafe, because we're already like mostly targeted by like officers just generally. So like they're gonna see me as a threat more than like a white person like just walking around, you know, like going to class. Like I could just like lift up my arm or dig in my pocket and they could put me in a mechanical restraint, because that's able to happen in our schools.
So you feel the same interactions with just cops on the street as these officers in the school? There's the same dynamic?
It's like crazy that like DPS just barely got rid of handcuffs on kids that are in elementary school. Like that's so crazy to think that like last year you could handcuff like just a regular little kid, you know, if you saw them as a threat. Yeah, like a little third grader. That's like, and it's usually like those brown kids that they'll see, because they're obviously like, it's a cultural thing. Like we're louder, we're just more expressive, and they'll always see it as a threat, and they'll always see it as like they're trying to do something. And it's not like a they, but I'm just saying like just people just generally usually see it as like we're doing something bad, and like referring to like the president, like we were like in the beginning, like Trump's like, oh, like Latinos are dangerous and stuff like that. So like how are we not going to believe what a person who's running our country is going to say, you know? Like what's to say that I mean a security officer, a resource officer doesn't think the same thing about me. So
For me, officers, they don't, like officers on the street, that doesn't make me feel safe at all. Having somebody walk in my school walking around with a gun, handcuffs, or pepper spray or something like that, that also doesn't make me feel safe anyways. Like they can misinterpret any action that you have, or just have their own like personal thoughts and like biases on them that makes me very uncomfortable actually.
Wow.
It's interesting because statistically most mass shooters are white Caucasian males. So tell me how that intersects with like you guys feeling safe, especially if you're a minority.
It goes with like perception. Like kind of what I said before, there's a huge stereotype that black and brown people are the dangerous ones in the schools, but like if we look at statistics, we're not the ones like being dangerous, if you want to say that, or creating these big like huge things. And so like for me, I feel like people think, oh, she could be dangerous, or like even the black males or the black and brown males at my school, that's something people walk around thinking. And so it's just like stereotypes make everybody think that.
Man, you guys are unbelievable.
You are unbelievable. I do want to ask one thing. I've always wondered, I live and breathe everything mental health, right, and how to get better access to people. So I've always wondered about what do you think about if there was like a mandatory class like every single day, or you had to go to counseling at your school, every single student, so that there wasn't that like you go but I don't kind of thing. What do you think about
secretly making an appointment and sneaking down to the counselor's office?
Right, being like pulled out, like, oh, I gotta go see Mrs. Whoever, you know. What do you think about that? Like that's just a part of going to school. Your mental wellness is like a class or an individual opportunity.
I think like sometimes, I think just generally we aren't equipped with the right counselors for us. Sometimes they don't care and they're doing multiple jobs. They're like trying to find classes for you. They're trying to change classes for the rest of the people in the school, and like they're just so overwhelmed that they don't really care about your mental health. You know, they're just like you need to do your college applications now. And like, it's never really about like, how are you doing? Like, what resources can I give you for you to feel better? And like, what can we do about these problems that are happening within your life? So like, I think even that like wouldn't even help, because like, what does it matter when we're not even provided with the right counselors for us, you know? And like, sometimes like at Brown schools you won't see like a Brown counselor, you know, and they're obviously not going to feel comfortable to talk to a person who doesn't look like them, you know. And like, there's also that part where like some people, well, like it's also a cultural thing that like you're shameful if you go to a counselor, or you go to like therapy or anything like that. Like, you're not going to go to counseling if your parents are like, you're like, if you go to counseling you're crazy, like you belong in a psychiatric ward. Like, it's such a cultural like look down upon, like it's what's it called, it's taboo. It's really taboo to like go seek help for your mental health, and that's also the root of the problems, and why like Brown people are like just kind of being past mental health and being past it, because they're not ever fixing it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I agree with some points in that. I feel like in my school, counseling is like kind of taboo, like you said, and it's not very valued. Like, I received a pass to go down to the counseling office, and it wasn't even for my mental health. It was for, because as you said, like my counselors at my school are handling so many different jobs. So it was actually for a bionic program that I got called down for there. And it was during like math class, and I went up to my teacher and told him, and he kind of said something along the lines of like, oh, well, we're doing a review. Like, are you sure you want to go down? This is like really important. Like, oh, maybe just like run down and check really quickly and then come back up as quick as you can.
So the value of obviously visiting a counselor is lower down than actually what's going on in class.
And it kind of made me feel like, not like a shame, but it kind of seemed like it was like a shame thing. Like, oh, well, you're missing this important test review to go down to the counseling office. And like I said, it wasn't even for my mental health, but if it was, like, that shame that it wasn't as going to the counselor wasn't as important as going to math class. I just feel like that's not, like, it should be more higher value.
So let me ask you this: if you had unlimited resources to all the money that schools can have, where do they spend money to make schools feel safe? Is it state of the art? We just keep talking about mental health. What do you spend the money on that goes, oh, finally a school where everything's, or most everything is? I mean, school kind of sucks anyway, but that, you know, I'm not going to be scared to death going to school. What do you think that looks like? Where do you spend the money? Where do you spend the resources? What do you change at school, in our school districts?
I think for me, like, I'm just thinking of me specifically, something that would make me feel more comfortable at school or more safer would be like putting more money towards getting teachers and adults and like faculty that look like me. Because I go, like, for me, if I'm feeling like, I don't know, if I'm just feeling out of my ordinary, like, happy state, if I want to be vulnerable, at my school, there's no one I can do that with. Of course, I can, you know, go to my friends and vent to them, but they, like, no shade, but like, they don't have the maturity to actually like support like what I'm feeling right now.
I think we had similar friends growing up.
I could talk to y'all, but I mean,
and that's kind of what you were saying too about teachers, counselors that look like you. Yeah.
I think it's hard to put your trust in someone that doesn't look like you, and they won't ever understand what you go through as a student that's brown or black. Like, how are you going to relate to my struggles in my community when you had the privilege to steer away from what I suffer? Like, there's, like, I can't, like, I'm not going to talk to a white person about what happens in my life, because also they could look down on it, and it would make me feel worse that they're judging the way my community is if I'm being vulnerable towards them.
Yeah, and then also getting back to like the friends, like like not really knowing what like to do in those types of situations. I think now, like, everyone in like society, like now at like schools, we're all put in like in some sort of situation where like a friend or like a loved one is like just like kind of like contemplating like life, or just like going through really tough like stuff, and then us like being put in those situations, we're not really like that, we don't really know exactly some right steps we could take in order to like help like give them the like the like full support they need, or just like talking to them and like talking things out and like calming them down and everything. But I just think it's really important for students now to just be educated on like some right steps on how to like deal and like being like put in those situations where like you have like friends that are dealing like with like really bad issues, or just contemplating life or something. But like we just need more knowledge by like other youth too, just more of like a youth-led sort of initiative that would better educate other students on like how to deal with and just taking the right steps with like our friends and stuff.
Good.
I agree. I see that a lot. I feel like what you guys deal with is you get texts, you see people's posts, they want to kill themselves, they're cutting themselves, they had a big fight with their family, and there's so much pressure on you. It's like 11 o'clock at night to be like, what do I do? Do I reply to this? Do I ignore this? Do I tell their parents? I feel like that comes up a lot. Do you guys feel that?
Especially like suicide jokes, like we're talking about school shooting
Yeah.
jokes. Like every day you go to school, like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself. I have so much homework, whatever. Like it's literally normal now, which is horrible, but it is. And before, like I was like kind of scared to say like something like why would you say that? Because it's just so normal. But now like some of my friends will be like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself, and I'm like, no, you're not. Like I confront them now just because it's become it's not a joke. Like it's never been a joke. But it's being treated like one, and it's kind of disgusting.
And I think that's why we need like counselors coming in and like training students, because like the counselors that are adults now, they kind of come in like they'll tell you like these are the signs you need to look for, and they'll be like, oh, like if your friend mentions wanting to kill themselves, or if they mention like something like that, and it's just kind of like the adults don't understand like culture at our age, and they don't understand that saying like I'm gonna kill myself is something that, you know, so many people say every single day. And just looking for like words, like specific buzzwords, like it doesn't really work like that anymore. So yeah, having like counselors coming in and training students and having more of a youth-led thing, because youth can relate to other youth rather than adults coming in and trying to teach the youth about the problems that youth are facing.
Yeah.
To continue with what you were saying earlier with like a them versus us situation, like mental health, like if I was like suffering something like really bad and for some reason contemplating that, it's not a lunch table conversation, you know? Like I have talked about like things like, not because I've suffered, but just like the general topic of mental health with my friends during like sleepovers and stuff like that, like things where you get into really deep conversations. But it's not, I don't feel comfortable like just like saying it randomly, like walking in the hallway, be like, I need help, just because it's one of those really like hard things to say. But I'm very blessed. I think I have multiple teachers and like counselors in my school that I can trust and rely on. In fact, like my counselor, she's like an Indian woman, like, you know, like me. And she's always been one of the persons, whenever I see her in the hallway, whenever she's like, oh, how are you? Like, how are you doing? And like, I know not everyone has that. I'm really like blessed to receive that. But I'm also like really grateful for it, because I'll just say something like, oh, like my schoolwork's like a lot right now, and she'll be like, yeah, like it's temporary. Like she always has a positive outlook on things. So it's really nice like going into her like office like once a month, and it's just such a happy like moment. And I have teachers from freshman year that I go back and see, and they just like, they've stuck with me just because they made such like an impact on my life at that time. And I'm extremely grateful to have that, because I know sometimes, like again, it's not that lunch table conversation. Maybe your friends aren't mature enough, and so to like have teachers and professionals who are always there for you is definitely something that needs to be done in all schools.
Now, do you all talk with your friends about the stuff we've been talking with today? I mean, is this normal conversation? No, you don't?
Just because, like, I know who my friends are. Like, I don't want to bash them or nothing like that, but like, if I was to come up and say, I'm going through this, that, and the third, it'd be like we could have that in-depth conversation, But at the end of the day, it's like, why would I want to have that conversation with you? You feel me? Because it's just like, you don't want to be seen as that, especially as a black male. Like, you don't want to be seen as, like, I've always been taught the stigma of, like, you don't need to show your emotion. You don't need to do, like quit what you, I don't want to, what's the word? You don't want to be a wuss. You don't want to be, like, that guy that has that issue. You feel me?
Sure.
So it's like, why do I want to, like, so I can never go to my friends or to, like, anybody. If I was going through something, I wouldn't be able to, I don't feel like I'd be able to go through my friends or go to, like, a counselor or anything like that, just because it's like, you're not supposed to be that person.
That guy, yeah.
And it's been so, like, ingrained inside of who I feel like black males are. Like, you can't seek help. You just have to deal with it yourself and keep it pushing.
But don't you think we have to change that?
Most definitely.
Right? It's like a generational thing. It has to be changed where black males are not seen in certain ways and Latina women are not seen in certain ways. Like all of these stereotypes we have, like you saying in your family, it would be shameful to say, I'm going to go see the counselor at school tomorrow. Maybe that'd be shameful for you. And if you said, I need to talk to somebody, that they'd be like, you're not a man then. You know, like these things have to change, I think.
And I feel like I am fortunate enough to grow up. I grew up with like I grew up in a female family. So it's like if I do want to run back to them, I could be like, hey, But just like I feel like it's our generation that needs to change that stigma. Like we need to be like you can't really be told by someone who's above you that's saying like, hey, it's okay, because you don't go through what they go through. But us, we all go through practically the same thing, more or less. So like, I feel like it's us that needs to train. It's us that need to teach our children and teach our peers to say, it's okay to open up. It's okay to say, I'm going through this and I'm going through that. Because if we don't, then it's never going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. I am lucky enough to have teachers lined up to who I could talk to. And I feel for me, if a teacher says, you know, you could come talk to me whenever, or they're like, this is a safe place, that makes me feel more vulnerable to them and I will open up. And even with my friends, like I'm blessed to have great friends to where we do check up on each other. We do like, you're stressed, finals are coming up, how are you feeling? And we're open about that, and I'm blessed to have that, but not everyone can go up to a teacher and say, this is what I'm going through, I need help. And I think my school does a good job saying, well, this is a safe place. Like you could come see me. And oftentimes just saying like, what you tell me, I won't judge you or anything, like that could save a life, for sure.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, please.
For me, it's like, for my friends, yeah, we check up on each other, but it's like we're all kind of going through the same thing. So what is it? Like if my friend comes to me with something serious, like oh my gosh, like I'm just so depressed right now, or something along those lines, it's like, what could I say that would like actually be effective right now, other than like, well, if you need anything, I'm here for you. Like just let me know, like, or just letting them vent to you. Like it's really a thought. What is it that I could say that would really be supportive in this moment, or that could potentially like help you get through that? It's kind of hard. Like I feel like my friends, they're dope. Like yeah.
All of you on the spot, and I'm gonna go slow, so the first one I ask has time. I want you to go around and tell me what your biggest fear is at school. If it's guns, if it's bullying, cyberbullying, if it's heartbreak, if it's tornadoes, if it's rabid dogs, whatever it is. And let's start here. We've been starting over there. When I say that, what are you fearful of most at school? What pops into your head?
This may sound a little bit weird, but
No?
crowds. Like when I think of gun violence, I think of crowds. Like crowds just scare me. Like when you're out in public, I'm always looking in crowds because big crowds just seem like, how do you get out of there? Like the whole, going back to that point. But I'd say crowded areas in my school scare me a lot.
All right, you're up.
Probably like someone in my class pulling out a gun, because like you don't know what kids have in their backpack. Like there's no way to know. But I know like the clear backpack thing, like I think there's a really fine line between like safety and like protection and privacy of students, and it's something it's really difficult not to cross. But sometimes it does. But I think just like that, like just being in a classroom and like that one quiet kid in the back, you never know what's gonna happen in a matter of seconds.
Yeah. All right.
I would say like it's just because it's the only thing that I can't control. Like if someone was to come in and like take one of my sister's lives, because I have two little sisters that go to my same school, and like if someone was to come in and take one of their lives or like one of my friends' lives, it's like my biggest fear is not being able to stop that, just because it's like there's literally nothing that I could do in that moment. So
Wow.
like,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah, for me it's definitely like being shot and like killed in my school. Like, I mean, cause I know for like lockdown and like fire drills, I take those seriously, and like fire drills too. Like, just like when those happen, like me and like a lot of my friends too. Like we usually just like kind of like make ourselves go in like the back of like the lines, like getting out of like the school, because we really don't know if there could be like a shooter waiting just waiting out like the doors, like that's just waiting for like the mass crowds of like people like trying to get out, and yeah, just
All right.
like
Very good. For you, your biggest fear at school?
My biggest fear at school is my resource officers. Anyways.
Wow.
My biggest fear would be gun violence, especially during drills. If it's a student, then they know, they know what's happening. They know where we go in our classroom, and it's also fire drills. If they pull the fire alarm and we all evacuate our classes, is that when something's gonna happen? So those are
your biggest fears.
yeah.
Are we just like naming them, or are we explaining them as well?
Whatever you want.
Okay, so for me, it would be like my teachers, like incompetencies within my teachers, as far as like me not having any teachers that look like me, because since kindergarten, ever since now, like I've only had one black teacher, so that's kind of scary to know that like my teachers don't know what I'm going through. I can't go to them. Like I don't know, I just don't have anybody in my school that I can really relate to. But also like the perpetuation of the school to prison pipeline.
The what? I didn't hear that.
The
School to prison pipeline.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. All right, your biggest fear at school?
For me, it would be my friends going through something really hard and either wanting to take their lives or taking their lives.
Yeah.
And one, I'd be scared of them doing that, and two, I'd be scared of knowing that or like feeling like I could have done something to change
Sure.
that.
Gosh, that's heavy. All right, and lastly.
Yeah, my biggest fear in school would probably be gun violence in general. Going back to the fire alarm thing, probably every single time. Normally at my school, if it is a drill, they'll the principal will come on the announcements and say like, hey, we're gonna have a drill in 5 minutes. But there have been a lot of times where it just goes off and they don't announce it beforehand. And every single time that happens, like, I know me and maybe a couple other people, like I'm always worried like, oh, did a student pull this and set it up so we're all in a big crowd? Like that happens with like lockdown drills, fire drills, like everything. And yeah, just gun violence, just like thinking about how easy it would be like if you somehow acquired a gun to just put it in your backpack and walk into school. And like you said, like there's a fine line between safety and privacy. But how easy it would be to just hide it and pull it out, like it's just so scary to me, and just always having that fear.
Well, I want to end this here, hopefully on, I don't know if necessarily a positive note, but certainly maybe a note of optimism here. And I want to go around again quickly as we're wrapping this up and ask each of you this. What do you want to tell your parents and the people in charge, whoever that is? What's one thing you like, listen to this is really what I want you to know? Did we skip you?
Probably just, I mean, I don't know, probably just the stress factor, I guess. When there's so much stuff going on, whether it be schoolwork or mental health or tests or drama, like socially, the fear of gun violence, like I feel like we're all under so much stress constantly all the time, with all these factors adding up. And because of that, it's really hard to go through that and to kind of put on a face and just try to keep up with your schoolwork and keep up with your social life at the same time. So I don't know, I'd probably just say that and just
Want
that
them
we're
to be
all
aware of all
yeah.
that. All right.
Mine
quickly,
would just
we'll
be
go.
like, be a part of it. Like, don't either support it, don't support it. Just be a part of it instead of waiting for the people around you to change something, or instead of waiting for anything to change, because clearly it hasn't and it won't unless we all do something.
I would tell the people at the top, like, the systems that were put in place like years ago, they aren't working anymore, so we need to start modernizing things to make it, like, I don't know, to make the school system successful for everybody.
Okay. And also, I want you to include thinking of your parents. What do you want them to know, as well as those officials in charge?
Oh, are you
So,
asking?
no, sorry. Yeah. Your turn.
One thing I would say is trust the youth. We know what we're doing and we know what we're trying to change. So instead of, trying to put, back then when I was in high school, like, none of this happened. Like, you need to trust where we're going with what we're doing. And even if it's like, well, the millennials are doing this, like, we're doing it because we're changing something. So trust us. We know what we're trying to do.
Good.
I think I think equity is really important, not equality. Those are two different things, because different communities need different resources, and when you give those resources to those communities, you have less chances of, like, all these bad things, like, coming out of, like, not to sound like artsy, even though I just, like, said what you said was cliche, but, like, make flowers like they'll bloom instead of, like, die.
Yeah.
Like,
Well said. Yeah.
My advice to parents and, like, my parents too would just be like, if just, like, listen to us and just, like, trust us, like if we ask if we could have, like, just a day to ourselves just to, like, refocus and everything, just please give that to us, because ultimately that we don't typically always go to our parents for help, and I know with me, I, like, rarely ever open up to, like, any adults or, like, parents, but and then, like, my advice to just, like, people is just, like be active and, like, just stay engaged with just, like, raising your voice, just being a voice for others who may not have one, or maybe someone who has lost theirs. Okay. Because it's just so important nowadays, especially in our generation and as a society now, for youth to stand up and for just adults too now.
All right, 3 more. What do you want the parents? What do you want the people in charge to know?
I would just say, touching on that listening factor, like, don't just listen to us, but take what we say to heart. Like, don't just take it as a grain of salt, but definitely take it to heart, because what we have to say is what's happening inside these school buildings. We're not just making this up. We're not just saying this for fun. We're saying this because, like, this has to do with our health. This has to do with the way we learn, and this has to do with our future as well as the future of the world. So just listen to us and take our advice.
Yeah. One thing I guess for everyone, myself included, is that everyone has their own life. They have their own teachers, parents, students, school, place they grew up in, their own history, that you never know what's going on in someone's life. You never know what happens when they go home. There's just no way to know, so, like, treat everyone with kindness. And I guess to my parents, I know I'm 16, I could never live by myself. I need them. I know I need them. I'm very well aware. But again, I have my own life, my own feelings. Like, I don't want you said, like, what I say, I'm not just making up. It's true feelings. And when I say something, it's usually for a reason.
And we'll end with you.
I'd say just don't compare us to your own generation, because I have a lot of times where my grandparents are like, well, my generation. I'm like, we're different. We can all connect in one way or in one form, but we have different problems than you, we're gonna have to fix because you may have caused these problems, or vice versa. So everyone's different. Those type of things.
Trust the youth. We know what we're doing. You all said that well. Thank you all so much. This has been eye-opening for me. It's going to be eye-opening for our viewers. And I guess two things. One, I'm sorry that this is your daily life, but also you're the ones to fix it. You're so much smarter than we ever were, you know, and so much more in tune with each other. So thank you, and good luck out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.